learning the Maamar Vata Titzave. We're on chapter 9, which in the text of lessons in Maamar, it's on page 379. The last question that the Rebbe asked in the Maamar is that the sequence of the psukim, the way the previous Rebbe, his father-in-law, explains, seems to be not in a structured manner, because he says that the Mesiras Nefesh that Moshe Rabbeinu and the Moshe in each generation instills within a Jew is associated with Vata Titzave, right? And yet the word kosis, and that's the kosis lamor, the crushed state, the state of being crushed, of being downtrodden and broken, and that itself is the springboard for the greatest growth. So he says, but the problem is that kosis lamoid is written after v'yikru elecha shem and zayis, and only at the end it says kosis lamoid. That's his technical question, which is not just technical because it's going to lead to the following chapters. So let's look inside. V'hine hakosuf v'kibel haYehudim es asher chelu lasois, the verse in the Megillah that the Yidden accepted what they began, what they started way back at Matan Torah. But at that time, it was Kof Aleim Harkegi, because Hashem put a mountain over them and said, if you accept the Torah, fine. If not, I'm dropping the mountain on you. So kind of, it was forced upon them. And now, during the time of Mordechai, they willingly accepted the Torah. Medaber, so that verse, this verse in the Megillah, Medaber b'Pashtus, it's speaking about, simply speaking, B'hazman shel achri hanes Purim. When it's taught, when is that? When were the Jews makabel the Torah willingly? After the miracle of Purim. But during the time of Haman's decree, that's when they needed the Mesiras Nefesh, and they stood with Mesiras Nefesh. We might say, the explanation given by my father-in-law in the Maamar on this verse, who should be Achashverosh Kiblu Mashechelu b'Matan Torah, that during the days of Achashverosh they accepted what they began when the Torah was given. Who gam lefi pashtus hakosuf shebekibel ve'lacher hanes. This explanation follows the simple meaning of the text, that the V'kibel that the Jews accepted upon themselves was after the miracle. Pisa, based on this, next page, 380, should be Me'achashverosh kiblu mashechelu b'Matan Torah shnei inyonim. There's two aspects to this acceptance, this willing acceptance by the Yidden. One, hakabola shehoisa bizman hagzeira al yedei hamesiras nefesh shelehem kimafurish b'Maamar. The acceptance that they accepted it through Mesiras Nefesh, as explained in the Maamar. And there was another acceptance, you hear this? After the miracle Purim, Shinailis Yoiser, that's even greater, Game HaKabola Bizman Hagzeira Kedlakama. That's even greater. So there's one acceptance during the time of Purim, which was associated with Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice. Then there was another Mesiras Nefesh, which he says is even another acceptance, which is even greater, that came after the time of the Gzeira. And he's going to explain. V'yashleima, look inside. The Rebbe says we have this similar idea in regard to the crushed to the illuminary. Through the idea of kosis that was during the time of Golus, Magim lehamoer, we reach the illuminary, not just the illumination. The shtei inyonim bezeh, here too we find two aspects. One, when Yidden are found in a situation of crushed, because there's a decree over Jews about Torah mitzvahs, just as when my father-in-law said his Maamar in 1927, Stalin and communism had a decree on Jews that they shouldn't teach children Torah and all of that. So too, when the first aspect of kosis is when you're pressured, when you're crushed, when the enemy, when the klipas says if you serve Hashem, you're going to be punished or God forbid killed and all of that. That's coming from an outside force. And when you withstand that opposition and that threat with Mesiras Nefesh, because only Mesiras Nefesh will get you through, otherwise you will give in and give up. So that leads to a feeling. So in other words, the kosis means you're crushed personally, you're disturbed, you're broken, and that itself gives you the energy not to give up and to go further and to have Mesiras Nefesh. That's one aspect. Another aspect of kosis, inyan b'kosis lamoy, shegam kish Yisrael nimtzoim b'matzav shel harchava, that even when Yidden are in a situation of archava, things are great, things are dandy, everything is going fine, no one's pressuring us. Harchava begashmias, and the Rebbe touches up, the Rebbe enunciates. Both they have material blessing in abundance. Begam harchava beruchnias, and there is harchava beruchnias. You can daven in 55 shuls and have 25 different echshedim, and you can wear 5 different types of talesim. No one's stopping you. Choose and pick your ruchnias. Hello. So seemingly, how is there a situation of crushed when we have it all? Like I always like saying, the first time I came to Bet Shemesh, and my apartment there I rented over there was near these villas. So I asked one of the fellows, he says, hey, why do I have to live in Flatbush in a nice, beautiful house? I can live in there, just roll in a villa. Gashmias and Ruchnias, the best of both worlds. That's what he's saying here. So when you have the best of both worlds, how is it that you feel crushed? Says the Rebbe, El Shein Nimtzoyim Begolus. Guess what? You're still in Golus. You are in Golus. We're in Golus, in exile. Next page. And this was the situation after the miracle of Purim. We had light and happiness and joyfulness and preciousness and dearness and goodness. Bepashtus. This means, simply speaking, gam beruchnius. It doesn't mean only we had wealth, but the Yidden, after the decree of Purim, of Haman, and all that period, we had Gaval the Geruchnius. The Yeseidim is there, the Rebbe says in the brackets, more so. Shegam Beis Hamam Nosan LeEsther. Right? What does it say in the Megillah? No. That also the house of Haman was given to Esther. In other words, the enemy was transformed and was given to Esther. What more do you need? Imagine that we get all the oil from Iran. Eretz Yisrael somehow gets all the oil. It's like the enemy itself is given over to Yidden. Shahayaz Hanes, Shahayaz Gam Hamayladis Hapcha. Oh, which means then there is also the virtue level of transformation. That the enemy itself and its forces become an aid for the Yidden. You take the klippa and you use the klippa for Hashem. Hello. So if so, where is the crushed state, Isser, when you have it all? Says the Rebbe, Kati Avdi Achashverosh Anan. The Gemara says we were still servants to Achashverosh even after the Nes. Who was the head honcho of the world? Achashverosh. But we had the Nes of Purim. Thank you very much. You had a Nes and you had Purim. Very nice. But Akati Avdi Achashverosh Anan. The Gemara says that. We're still servants to Achashverosh. Heim Shvurim V'Nitkoyim. So we are in a situation where we are shattered and broken. Kos is crushed. Mizeh Shehem Begolus. In other words, Rabbi say, you can live in Eretz Yisrael, and you can live right next to the Kaisel over there on the other side. There's Kaisel HaKotan. I was there, and you can look through the hole and see the ground of the the Mokim Dazara and all that. You're still in Golus. We're all in Golus. Vayidei HaKos the Yisrael Mizeh, and we get brokenhearted from this. We're shattered. Shinimtsoyim Begolus, that we're in Golus. That itself is the springboard Magiyim Lahamoed. We reach the illuminary. You reach the highest plateau from the lowest bottom. Classical 12th step. Until you're at the 12th step, you're not healed. You gotta feel rock bottom. That's what it says here. And it's so therefore, as far as Kosis is concerned, there's no difference between the time of Haman, when we were literally going to be killed for being Yidden and on, or the time of freedom. Because Golus is tantamount to a decree. That's the Nakuda here. Exile mentality, slavery, and Golus mentality is like Haman's terrible decree. And just like during Haman's terrible decree, whether we liked it or not, we were pressed against the wall, we were kossis. So too now, if a Yid realizes what's going on, that he's in Golus, he's kossis. Next page, 383. Now the Rebbe is going to explain this. The fact that Yidden are broken hearted from the fact that they're in Golus, even when they have affluence in material and spiritual matters, because the true will of every Jew, every Jew really wants godliness should be apparent and revealed. And to the extent that to the extent that this godly revelation, it's relevant to who he is, to his essence. And therefore, the fact that during the time of exile, godliness is not apparent, like it was during the time of the Beis Hamikdash, the temple, and specifically when you think about the saying of the sages, the teaching of the sages, Kol mi shalei nivdeh Beis Hamikdash b'yamav. Every person that the Beis Hamikdash has not been built during his lifetime, Harizeh ki'ilu nechrav b'yomav. It's like it has been destroyed in his days. That's it. So, you can be a tzaddik, a beinoni, this, that. Where's the Beis HaMikdash? The Beis HaMikdash wasn't built during your time. Chazal say it's ki'ilu nechrav b'yomav. Very, very powerful Chazal. So therefore, no one can say, Hillel, no one can say, hey, I have Gashmis, I have Ruchnius, my dear friend, you don't have Beis HaMikdash. It means you don't have Gilui Likus. You should, fascinations, inspiration, it's all nice. But Gilui Likus that was present when we had a Beis HaMikdash, do you understand? When we had a Beis HaMikdash, godliness was apparent. That's what it says, that the Beis HaMikdash was the Mokum of Gilui Likus, and it spread throughout the world. We don't have that now. Continue. This itself, he says in Yiddish now, going on to the next page, is in Ganzen zutreiselt. The word zutreiselt is a Yiddish word, means shooken up. He's completely shaken up. Kosis. That's the state of crushed. And even when he's in a higher level, you hear, let's say he's a higher person with a higher soul, and he senses the Beis HaMikdash, he senses that. Nevertheless, next page, Hagilui, the fact that the revelation is not outside on the street, this proves that what you have to yourself, you tzaddik, or you, who Gilui Migbal is limited. Famous story with the Abter Rebbe, one of the Hasidic Rebbes, the tzaddikim. He went into his room and he opened the window and he smelled outside. So he said, Father, what are you smelling? So he said, I'm smelling to see if Mashiach has come yet. So he said, Father, if you're at the level that you could smell it, why do you have to open the window? Stay in your room and smell from it. And he answered him, in my room, I smell Mashiach. The issue is whether outside there's Mashiach. It's a powerful, powerful story. It's a deep insight that Mashiach is Gilui Likus ba'olam, not Gilui Likus etzlecha. My personal place is all great. Now, what about the world outside? And if there's and the Rebbe says over here that if there isn't Gilui Likus outside, that means by you it's also limited, and therefore you could be a holy roller, you could be taka big tzaddik and everything, but you should know you don't have the ultimate of Gilui Likus, and because of that you feel kosis. And I can tell you, Chevre, listening and being with the Rebbe 25 years at his Fabrengens, that I was Zoiche, right? He felt this way, because I saw it so many times, where, and here is a person, okay, Hashem didn't bless him with children, and he went through the First World War, and then the Revolution, and the Second World War, on and on, but nevertheless, from when he came to America, things were in a sense all good, and yet, in the middle of Fabrengens, he becomes so emotional, and he talks about the pain of Golus. I heard this from him so many times over the years. In other words, what I walked away with, and what we walked away with, those that paid attention, is he never was satisfied with his own status of being a Lubavitcher Rebbe and learning and davening and helping Yidden. No. Because, and that's what he said in 1991, Chav Ches Nisan, which we discussed. I've done everything and nothing, and it hasn't helped. And now you guys make sure to bring Mashiach. That was his Nakuda. The Nakuda is, it's all very nice. And I've done, so many good things for world Yiddishkeit and for you guys and everything, but Mashiach is not here. The outside Mashiach is not here. Maybe inside 770, maybe inside my room there's Mashiach, but outside there's no Mashiach. So this you see, this says the same Nakuda in the Maamar. He's saying the exact same Nakuda. So therefore, don't, and if you think about it, there is this attitude like, Aniyas nafshi atzalti. I save myself. I can't worry about anyone else. No, okay, but that's a limited. It's true. It's important to think about yourself, meaning in the sense of your family, your community, and it's very nice, very important. But what about the Gilui Kuz that we need for collective redemption? You haven't touched that at all. And the attitude of many in the frum world, or maybe most, is like, okay, Hashem will worry about that. I don't have to worry about it. Well, the Rebbe, Lubavitch, the Alter Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe have a different attitude. We do have to worry about the entire world. And by the way, it's not just about the hippies with the ponytails of the 60s and 70s. It's about the frum people in Williamsburg and Borough Park and Meir Shorim. It's about Yiddentum, because no one has Mashiach, no one has Gilui Kuz. You gotta, you can convince yourself from today to tomorrow you don't have Gilui Kuz the way you smell the outside if Mashiach is here. So that's the Nakuda. Let's go back to the text. And he says, look at this. When there's even just one place, afilu pina nidachas, even a deserted corner, some little place in Wyoming, in a little town that's only 3,000 people. The question is, how are we going to bring godliness to that little town, to those people? She'ein meir shom gilui kuz, that place doesn't have godliness. It's because the revelation where it does shine, who gilui mugbul, it's limited. It's limited. We're looking for collective redemption, which is limitless all over, wherever you go. And I brings a tremendous teaching from the Alter Rebbe. The Isa b'tikunim is brought in Tikkunei Zohar or in some old sources. Shafilim hoyer tzaddik echad. If there was even just one tzaddik. Next page, 386. Shechayze b'tshuva shleima. If there was one tzaddik that would really return and do tshuva, complete tshuva, b'dayrei hayabo Mashiach. When I learned this the first time, I just didn't know where to put myself. Mashiach would come. In other words, if there was just one tzaddik that was really concerned about the whole world, that means that that's the way he does tshuva, Mashiach would come. And since Mashiach hasn't come, is proof that there isn't even one tzaddik that's done that level of tshuva. Ki al yedei tshuva shleima mamshichim gilui oirei sof b'litvuv. Because through complete and true tshuva, you draw down godliness in an infinite way all over. V'gili zel b'chol mokim. And it's all over. And the fact that the world does not have yet the revelation of the infinite Hashem, who nishba v'nitke, it shatters you, it breaks you, cusses. So this is the Rebbe's point here, that the state of mind of Kosis is for everyone, even the Tzaddik Gomer. And then on the contrary, because the Tzaddik Gomer is even on a higher level, he has to take more responsibility. The word ill, sick, which is chole, its numerical equivalent, its gematria is 49. Shegam kishemasik memtes sharibina. Meaning that even when you comprehend the 49 gates of faith, El Shekosu Lo Sharanun, but you're missing the 50th gate, Hu Chayle, you're sick. Tell a person, Hillel, go into Meir Shorim and tell them they're sick. Why are they sick? But we have everything. We don't look anywhere. We're all closed up. You're still a Chayle, even if, because Mashiach is not here. But I did everything. Very nice. Chayle Gematria Memtes. You're missing the Sharanun. You do on next page, Mashakosa, what Tzemach Tzedek Shoyinishma, Memoyer Rabbeinu Nishma Nadu Bozokin. It's known what the Tzemach Tzedek writes in the name of that he heard from the Alter Rebbe, his grandfather. Ich will, we learned this in the previous Maamar, but he repeats it here again. Ich will Zegor nicht. I don't want anything. Ich will nicht ein Gan Eden. I don't want your paradise. Ich will nicht. I don't want your world to come. Ich will mehr nicht. All I want is dich allein, is you, only you. And the fact that we heard this in the name of the Alter Rebbe, the Pirush, Hoya Nishma, when the Tzemach Tzedek writes, we heard, this implies it wasn't just at select times. This was a regular saying of the Alter Rebbe. This is the Rebbe's analysis of his great-grandfather, the Tzemach Tzedek's statement in Derech Mitzvah Secha that we heard from the Alter Rebbe. And the Rebbe here explains that, and not only here, but in other places as well, this implies that it was ongoing. It wasn't like once in a blue moon. And specifically, after this thought of the Alter Rebbe was publicized in the Maamar of Derech Mitzvah by the Tzemach Tzedek, is Niten HaKoyach. The power has been given to every single Jew. Next page. That the main will of a Jew should be essence, God's essence. And that we have the ability to draw down the essence. To the point. So much so that if this revelation of Atzmos, of essence, of God, is not apparent, and surely during the time of exile, that we don't even have the revelation that was during the time of the temple, one is in a situation of crushed, and he requests 3 times a day or more. May it be that we see with our own eyes the returning of Zion with mercy. Then there'll be the revelation of godliness to the and even more so the revelation of essence. And this is the concept of what it means in the pasuk, crushed the luminary. The causes through the idea of crushed. From what? From the fact that we find ourselves in exile and it bothers us. We reach not just the illumination, but we reach the illuminary, the source of light. That everyone's will from the position of distress is to have godly revelation. Next page. Until that it's relevant to his essence. You can't live. You can't eat. You can't sleep. You're not yourself. Because godliness is missing in your life. Mashiach is not here. Therefore you're shattered and broken causes. From the fact that there isn't godly revelation during Golus. This is not coming from something that's superimposed on you. It is who you are, your essence. We call that the illuminary of the soul. The connection between this level of the soul with Hashem is an essential bond. Tomorrow we will learn, we're going to have a Farbrengen. We're going to make a Farbrengen. I hope you come and we'll talk more, okay? Zeit gesund, Bye bye.